Hello, hi, and welcome to another episode of The Emma Gunn Show and a midweek instalment of Bullet Points, brought to you this week by a discovery that you could also perhaps call a happy accident. And I shall explain exactly what I mean by that and the reason why I am sharing it with you, because whilst it might be something of a personal realization for me, I don't think it is something exclusive to me, an experience that only I have indeed experienced. And it happened very, very accidentally. I know I've already said that, but it did. I have a morning routine that you and I have spoken about many times over the years. I wake up, I shuffle to the coffee machine, I brew an espresso, I sit down, I drink the espresso, I meditate. But actually there had been a slight evolution, even perhaps something that I hadn't explained or told you about, because it was just sort of this automatic thing. And part of that morning routine is that I would wake up, shuffle into the kitchen, and then on the way to the coffee machine, I would turn on the television so that I could catch the news headlines. Now, it wasn't entirely a news source. It was also sort of news-tainment. So I would turn on, in the UK here, ITV. I would watch Good Morning Britain. I would catch up on the headlines. I would see which commentators they had on, what subject they were covering. And then when it came time to meditate, I would press the mute button, shut my eyes and do my meditation. And sometimes I would even use the clock on the television on Good Morning Britain in order to count my 20 minutes of meditating. So open my eye, done 14 minutes, okay, 6 more. And quite by accident, a couple of weeks ago, I walked into the kitchen and I think I had been slightly overstimulated. I was a little bit overtired. I just deviated from my usual routine and didn't put the television on. I was kind of in that mood where, had I had people around me and somebody had tried to start a conversation with me or had even said good morning, I think I would have thought, not now, not today. Just stop, which is very unkind. But I'm just trying to explain to you where my head was. I was a little bit overstimulated. I was a little bit overtired. I was a little bit grumpy probably. And I just wanted quiet, peace and quiet. And so I didn't put the television on. And I didn't really think about it beyond that. I had my coffee. I sat down. I actually sat down in another room to meditate. I got up, went for a walk. I call it a walk run because halfway through the run, or just a little before halfway through the run, I start running. I run for about a mile and then I walk the rest of the way home. And I got on with my day, and it just so happened that it started on a Monday. I did it again on a Tuesday. I did it again on the Wednesday. And by the time I got to the end of the week, I realized I hadn't put the television on. And not only had I not missed it, I realized quite what a drain these sorts of things are on your time. Now, it's not that I don't enjoy Good Morning Britain, because I do. It's not because it's a bad programme or anything. But what I realised was what could sometimes take an hour to 90 minutes, like that Good Morning routine, was taking far less time. Because what I didn't realise is that watching what was going on the television, getting drawn into a debate, was sort of almost acting as filling, as sponge, as padding into my morning, making it far less efficient, even though the whole reason I would put the television on in the first place was, I suppose, A, there's a tiny bit of it, this is like having a bit of company, like starting the day with a bit of something, but B, it felt responsible to be watching the news, to be abreast of what was happening in the headlines. And I think we've probably all got to that point in the week, whether it's on a Friday or whether it's on a Sunday, when you're kind of doing a quick eval of the week that you've just had, where you think, where did all that time go? How did I not get more done? How was I not more productive? And so it made me think about all of these little hidden drains that are pinching our time. And less obvious than the most obvious one, which is obviously social media. Now, I am very guilty of it. I was watching TikTok a lot. I find it very entertaining. I find the fact that 1 minute it's a friend's clip that I know, next minute it's a recipe, next minute it's, I don't know, a review of a hotel or a restaurant that I might want to go to. I find all of that quite interesting. But even that, it feels very different from the drain this sort of padding, these sort of routine things can have. And like I said, it can feel quite harmless. It feels good to be watching the news. It feels good I know what's going on. But it's not just about the time that it takes, or the fact that where clearly without it, I've been going from espresso to meditation to getting ready for my run with far greater efficiency and in far less time. It's also the way that it stimulates you. And all of the news programs are kind of trying to get you riled up, trying to get you worried about something, because the more worried you are, well, let's face it, social media, anything, any program, the more worried you are, the more negative emotions it stirs up in you, the longer you are likely to engage with it. If you put on Good Morning Britain and it said, the weather's going to be fine, the economy is on the up, and people are nicer, you'd probably turn off and go out into the world. But as it is, you sort of stay at home and go, oh my God, I don't want to go outside. Or maybe that's just me. I'm mildly agoraphobic. At times, I can very, very quickly revert to hermit, but that's a topic for a whole other podcast. So I felt motivated to talk to you about this because I feel like mornings are such an important part of our day. And I've spoken so often on the podcast about how morning routines are vital. I am a long-time listener of Tim Ferriss, and he is a proponent of a morning routine. Most people who are on social media or have a platform where they're trying to tell you about how to maximize your time will be telling you about the importance of a morning routine, will be telling you about the importance of that first 30 minutes, that first 60 minutes. And I think they are entirely correct. And what might seem like I'll just tune into the news for 2 minutes to watch the headlines, can easily become 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it is. And so I was thinking about it in this idea of already when you start the morning, okay, think about it. I want a coffee. Why do I want a coffee? I want a coffee because I want to exercise quite soon. I want to let that buzz of the caffeine get into my bloodstream so that I can kind of pounce on that surge of energy when I'm out, and it sort of hits like nitrous in Fast and Furious when I'm out walking, running, or strength training. That's the goal. That's the reason why I start the day with an espresso, because I've always been someone who does fasted cardio or fasted workouts, and I tend to work out pretty much as soon as I get up. There's very little wriggle room, if you like. But I've been putting this buffer between, which means that by the time I get around to doing my exercise, that caffeine high has gone. Actually, more often than not, I'm probably experiencing that caffeine surge when I'm doing my meditating, which probably isn't the best time. So I suddenly realized that this whole idea of having an efficient morning routine was becoming inefficient because of some things that I was padding it with. And as much as I like to be surrounded by the radio I like to go to bed with the radio on. And again, we'll come to the end of the day in a minute. I am being much more mindful right now of the ways in which I can maximize my time without draining it, because that does feel like the thing. The things that drain, the things that distract are very easily incorporated into the day. So if I want to, for example, have a really efficient day, and actually, touch wood, I'm having one today because I got up and I wasn't going to put makeup on because I thought I just want to get into my inbox. I've got so many emails to get back to. But something told me, put some makeup on, you want to do some filming, and it takes 5 minutes, but putting the makeup on kind of G's me up, and I think, oh, do you know what? I'll just quickly film that Zara dress thing that I said that I was going to film for the last 4 days and haven't got round to. And then before you know it, I'm filming something else. And then so weirdly, these little things that you think are going to save time actually make your time more efficient, which is absolutely fantastic. So I feel like cutting out something like the news and engaging with it in a way that is more efficient. So to that end, when I go out for my walk, listen to the latest news podcast. I listen to the Daily Tea. I listen to the news agents. I listen to The Rest is Politics. I also have started listening to The Rest is Entertainment, which I find really entertaining, actually. And they were talking this morning about the Real Housewives of London, which is, Real Housewives is a passion subject of mine. So I was definitely engaged. But I'm now thinking, okay, I want to engage with the news, but maybe Good Morning Britain isn't the right thing for me because it does seem to drain on my time. So how can I engage with the news, with what's going on, without losing time? And it is that kind of habit stacking. It's that, okay, well, I'll do it when I go for a walk, or I'll do it when I'm commuting, or I'll listen to the news when I'm doing something else. Or I recently subscribed to the magazine The Week, and on a Friday, it should arrive on a Friday, but it usually arrives on a Saturday. That's when I read it from back to front, actually, and catch up on everything. And it's sort of an amalgamation of news stories from all of the newspapers, titles, platforms, etc., which is quite good. Quite enjoy it. If you're The Week subscriber, let me know, because if nothing else, I think the covers are absolutely genius, but that's another thing. So there are obviously lots of other things that really drain on our time, like WhatsApp, notifications, all of those things. I don't have many notifications on my phone. I try not to be distracted too much, but I think this was really, the point was, it's something that looks like a good habit to have, a good thing to have in your day, but actually it's working against you. So I'm mentioning it to you because maybe you feel the same way. Maybe it's not Good Morning Britain for you. Maybe it's something completely different. But perhaps there is something that is just pulling your time away from you in a way that you hadn't realised. And so I encourage you to sort of interrogate your day and think, is there anything that I'm doing that's actually, instead of making me more efficient, is making me more like I'm wading through treacle? Because no one likes to get to the end of the week and feel like they've wasted time, or that they've not been particularly efficient, or that they've struggled to get on top of things. And I think that's the thing. It's that thing of how have I still got so much of my to-do list to carry over to next week? And I'm not saying that taking this one thing out is going to make the big difference, but it could just be that there are a couple of things that are just, I don't know, just pulling, just draining in a way that perhaps you don't realise. So for me, I've realised it's morning television. And so I don't want to get into that. Equally, just to sort of counter it, at the end of the day, I was sort of soothing myself to sleep by listening to a podcast or having a TV show on, but with the screen off. I know that sounds nuts, just because it felt quite nice, like with a sleep timer on, it felt quite nice to go to sleep with some sort of something happening in the room. And that's something I've knocked on the head as well. I'm trying to read at bedtime and then literally put the book down, get comfortable, and try to have nothing but quiet and just sort of sit there and try to go to sleep, as we did in the old days before you had loads of distractions. And my sleep has been a little bit bad recently. It's been really interrupted. There's been a lot of waking up at 2:00 in the morning and not getting back to sleep. At the moment, if I'm waking up at 5, I'm like, result. The worst is when you go to bed early and I'm thinking, right, I'm going to get into bed at 9:30 and really I'm going to try and relax, and then you wake up at 11. That is a killer. So I've been trying recently to go to bed at 11, and I seem to be waking up around 5-6 o'clock, which is decent. But anyway, I am taking out that other thing that seemed like a balm, the sort of the nightly podcast or the soothing music or the soothing TV show, always something that I've watched before, so that I'm not thinking, oh, I want to see what's going on. But I've stopped that as well, because I feel like not only was it perhaps making it harder to fall asleep, it was also compromising the quality of sleep, which is not something that I particularly want. So anyway, this is just to say that there are definitely drains on your time. And they're there in plain sight. They are hiding in plain sight, but it might be time to do a little bit of an inventory about what does your morning routine look like? I'm not talking about becoming super efficient and doing bulletproof coffee and 100 air squats before 7 a.m. I'm just talking about how can you take obstacles out of your day? How can you take these sort of interruptions? And again, I was reminded of my conversation with Johan Hari the first time he came on the podcast and talked about his book Stolen Focus, and about how when your brain switches gear, for example, say I'm going through my emails and then someone messages me on Instagram, so I'm like, I'll get back. Well, can you give me the recipe for that high protein yogurt? And I'm like, 200 grams of fine, and then I go back to the emails. It will probably take my brain about 20 minutes to actually get back into the gear it was in before it was distracted. So these drains, that's how they kind of really pinch on your time. It's not just that they're taking your time, it's that when you're trying to get back to being efficient, it's slowing you down. So my morning breakfast watching routine is in the bin. I'm not going to do it anymore. Radio only, if I have anything on. But mainly I just want to get up, get out and start listening to podcasts, start listening to the news, all those sorts of things. So, and the other thing that I am using a bit more, and I remember years ago writing something for Get the Gloss about this, about how you sort of set yourself a time for a task. I've been doing that a lot. And actually I find I have to do a lot of reading for research. But when I sit down and read, I feel like I'm basically playing truant. It feels like I'm dossing. It feels like someone's going to come and say, you're not working. And so now I set myself a half-hour timer and I sit very quietly in the corner and I read a book. You can't, if you're watching on YouTube, you might be able to see, but I've got like a case over there. But I've got a big yoga pillow and I sometimes prop myself on that and read for half an hour, set the timer, and then get straight back to my emails. And that's proving to be really efficient. So flow states, whatever you want to say, just anything that takes the obstruction out of your day and anything that disconnects that drain from your day, so that when you get to the end of the week, you're not thinking, where did my time go? And why did I not get everything done that I wanted to get done? Anyway, if any of that resonates, if you feel like you've got drains on your time, or if you have a specific drain on your time that you're now going to correct or tweak or change because of this podcast, then let me know. office@emmaguns.com, DM me at Instagram where I'm at emmaguns, and also this will be on my Substack, so join the chat over there and we can talk about it there. But there you go, drains on our time. We can't add hours to our day, obviously. What we can do with these tiny little tweaks and actions is reclaim our day, the time that we already have. So let's have at it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you on the next one.